Hi Squids, it's me Sid. Welcome back to my channel. I haven't done that intro in a while, so it's a little messy. Sorry. So today I am back from my extended break because school has finally kind of settled down. If I'm messing with my hair, I'm sorry. I just washed it and blow dried it and it didn't do what I wanted, so. Anyway, I have been keeping a book journal on my iPad. So these videos are a little more coherent. Although, you know, we'll see. So I finished a total of 11 books in February, but I will be talking about 12 books. So I don't know, I sent some books home with my parents. I'm not sure how many books that I have. If I read them physically, I have with me. Anyway, so the first book that I'm going to be talking about is The Brink of Darkness by Jeff Giles. This is a fantasy series. I read this physically. I don't have the book because I think I sent it home. And this is the second in a series called The Edge of Everything. Okay, so I rated this 5 stars. Now to talk about it a little bit. This second book in a series, so I'm not going to talk about it a whole lot because I don't really want to spoil the first book. But these books were crack to me. I'll explain the first book. How about that? I'll explain the first book. So our main character we're gonna call her Zoe because it's Z-O-E, and I think that's Zoe. So Zoe has had a bad couple of months. Her dad died, her neighbors died, and now there's this really big snowstorm. So her brother disappears, and she goes after him, and this bad guy shows up and tries to harm them, and then this mysterious guy who is called X shows up and saves them. And basically X is not human exactly. So we get it's a love story. It's kind of insta-lovey. I can tell you my thoughts about the first book. The characters really are really amazing. They're very detailed, and I really like them. I'm trying to think. They read like real people, which I know can be hard in a fantasy book, especially if it is something that's kind of insta-lovey. But it's for a YA book, it is very deep because it talks a lot about grief, family, self, stuff like that, what it means, what vengeance means, stuff like that. My giant stack of books that I will tell you about. This stack of books. I can't keep a coherent thought apparently. But yeah, that was just the sequel, and we get a little bit more about specifically X because we don't get a whole lot about him in the first book. The first book is mostly focusing on Zoe. So yeah, but that was the first book that I finished in February. Next, I read A Psalm for the Wild Built by Becky Chambers. I read this as an ebook, and this is the first in a series called the Monk and Robot series. I'm just playing with my hair now. This is a science fiction novella. It was maybe 200 pages. I read this as an ebook, so I don't remember. And I rated it 5 stars. So basically, we follow our main character, Dex, who is a monk, but is feeling very unsatisfied with their life. So they decide to change their vocation and try to go on a journey to try and find themselves. And they become a tea monk, so we get lots of like tea and plants and stuff, which I really love. I really love plants. And they meet this robot who I don't remember their name. Its name, because the robot uses its pronouns. But the robot is trying to find out what humans need, and so they go on little adventures together. It's really, really cute. The characters were so lovingly crafted. I mean, I could feel everything that they felt. They felt like such real people. Like, I could go out on the street and like meet these people. Like, they were just so lovingly crafted. The world is amazing, by the way. You don't get a lot of world building, but the world building you get is just, it's amazing. It's beautiful. I loved it so much, legitimately. Like, the world is just so interesting, especially because there are gods in this world, but it said that the gods have taken kind of like a backseat. And so that's also really, really interesting, the way that the gods are talked about and stuff like that. And then really this whole book, the theme, I guess, of this book is basically what the human condition is, what it means to be human. And I just really, really enjoyed that. And I really want to read more by Becky Chambers because she can read my heart, apparently. She speaks to me. Alright, next I read 2 books for a class that I'm taking for college. It's about time travel in pop culture. So I read Rip Van Winkle by Washington Irving, and then I also read The Time Machine by H.G. Wells. These are both science fiction, and I rated them both 3 stars. They were very, very similar and very, very of the time, talking about like the way it's written and the themes and all of that. They were okay. I'm not really gonna talk a whole lot about them because they were just okay. It wasn't really anything that like blew me away, and they were pretty short. They were like really short, so there wasn't a whole lot in there for me to talk about. I mean, The Time Machine by H.G. Wells is a little longer, but I didn't quite like it as much as I liked Rip Van Winkle, because the way that he talked about certain people in the future I thought was a little iffy, but you know. Next, I finally finished Les Mis by Victor Hugo. I started this in August and I finished in February. This book, because I got the unabridged edition, right? I got the unabridged edition. That was a mistake. It was so it was 1,400-ish, more than that, pages, and it was a lot for my tiny brain. And I didn't really care about it a whole lot. I liked the characters. I had read an abridged version where it was just the story about all of the main characters, it would be fine. But because I got the unabridged version, which was a mistake, I had to read about 50 pages about the Battle of Waterloo, or 20 pages about the sewers of France, or 20 pages about an extinct language that criminals in France used. It was just, I wanted him to have an editor, which is, I think, what the abridged versions are. I should have read one. It was a mistake. It was good. I really liked the story. I didn't like the way it ended, but that's neither here nor there. I mean, it's really not. I I would recommend it if you get an abridged version. If you get an unabridged version, you're in for a ride, is all I have to say. Next, I read The Year of the Witching by Alexis Henderson. I was trying to read a couple books for Black History Month, and this is kind of where I start that, which wasn't until the 8th of February, which was probably a mistake. Anyway, this is the number 1 book in a series called Bethel. I read this as an ebook, and it is a fantasy horror book. I rated this 4.5 stars. Do I remember why? No. Did I think I rated it 5? Yes. Anyway. So I'm gonna read the little like plot summary that I wrote, because I write like plot summaries for all the reviews that I do. Do I know why? Absolutely not. Anyway, Emmanuelle never knew her mother, a bride of the prophet who fell in love with someone else. Emmanuelle was raised to uphold the values that her mother hated, and things were going well. That is, until Emmanuelle stumbles into the dark wood and unleashes a curse on all of Bethel. Now she and the prophet's son must stop the curse before all of Bethel falls. That's pretty much what the book's about, actually. So I wasn't sure about this book at first because the religious metaphors are very, very heavy and very, very obvious, and they kind of just like slap you in the face, and it's like, I don't know how I feel about that. That's kind of like a, I'm also trying to fix my hair while I do this because I feel like I keep messing it up. Anyway, yeah, it was in the beginning, the metaphors were just very heavy-handed, I guess, and they're very heavy-handed throughout the entire book. However, because as I read more, I got used to it, so it didn't feel as heavy-handed as the book went on. The characters are amazing. I really, really liked the characters, because they felt very human with what, the way they were thinking and the way they were doing things and stuff like that. All of that stuff, you know, they all felt very human. The setting was also really, really interesting. I could really see this, like, they live in a town called Bethel. I could really, really see what Bethel looked like, and I always think that's really, really interesting. And then I always really like religious commentary because and so I really, at the end, I really, really liked the religious metaphors that were in it, and I would definitely recommend this, and I kind of want it in my grubby little hands so I can read it again and again and again. Next is a book that I DNF'd. It's called The Blood Trials by N.E. Davenport. So this is the first in a duology called the Blood Gift Duology, and I was reading this as an ebook. So I'm gonna read you the little blurb that I wrote. Kenna's grandfather is dead, died of a heart attack, or so the coroner says. Suddenly, information comes to light that her grandfather's death might not have been an accident like everyone says it is. Now Kenna has to fight for her place among the ruthless Praetorians, along with finding out what actually happened to her grandfather. So it sounds really, really interesting, right? And I wanted it to be really, really interesting, but this author doesn't do any world building. It's a mix of science fiction and fantasy, which would be wonderful if there was any world building whatsoever. For the fantasy, our main character has magical powers, but it's not explained the expanse of her powers. She just has like random powers. It's also said that she's supposed to be super, super strong, but the people, the like military group that she's trying to join, they keep beating her up. And like she's not even doing as well as some of her fellow, like, the people who are trying out to get into this military group. Like, she's like not always doing as well as them. And I'm like, ma'am, what? And it's supposed to be that the gods who have like gone away have given people these powers, but it didn't seem like the powers were specific to the god. It felt like every person who has powers has all of the powers. So I was really confused. And then for the science fiction part, there was just technology with no explanation of like how it developed, if they're still developing stuff. It was just kind of there. And there was a war, but it didn't really explain the war. And then there was a genocide, which is supposed to be really recent, but I don't know how it was really recent. And this society is based off of racism and bigotry, which makes sense, except for the fact that it doesn't. There's just no world building, and it made me sad. And also, the racism was like every character except for 3 characters were racist. And I was like, can you not? And they were like overtly racist. Like they were like, oh, because you're black, you are black and a woman? No. Immediately no. And I'm like, guys, all of you? Really? All of you. Finally, the characters were very two-dimensional. None of them seemed to really grow. I did DNF it at 46%, so I gave it a good old college try. I couldn't do it anymore. Like, I wanted to DNF at 25, and I was trying to push my way through until 50 to see if it got better. It didn't. The world building, I think, was really bad for me, because I think if you don't have good world building, at least your characters should be good, but the characters weren't even really that good, because our main character switches between like super angry and like not very, very quickly. But it's like that, it just really didn't make sense to me at all, and I just, maybe eventually I'll try and read it again, but I really don't know, because I have a problem DNFing books. Tell me in the comments if you think I should give it another try. Next, I have Black Leopard, Red Wolf by my Marlon James. I saw James first. This is a historical fantasy and is the first book in the Dark Star trilogy. I think each book is like a retelling of the events based on different characters' points of view, so I think technically you can read every book by itself. I love this book. I rated this book 5 stars. I want to buy this book so I can keep it on my shelf because it was amazing. I'm not cursing. This is a kid-friendly channel. It's not, actually, because a lot of these books are not kid-friendly. But this book was amazing. I know a lot of people say about the main character hating women, but I also think that it makes sense for the way that the character is, and I think it's just a lot for some people because the whole book is from that character's point of view, so we really don't get a whole lot of differing perspectives, but I think we will in the next book, although I've heard the next book is not very good. But I really liked this one a whole lot. The world was beautiful. The characters were beautiful. I would have sobbed if I wasn't emotionally stunted. And I'm gonna read you the synopsis on the book because I can. Tracker is known far and wide for his skills as a hunter. He has a nose, people say. Hired to find a mysterious boy who has disappeared, Tracker breaks his own rule of always working alone when he finds himself part of a group assembled to search for the boy. The band is a hodgepodge full of unusual characters with secrets of their own, including a shape-shifting man-animal known as the leopard. As Tracker follows the boy's scent, he and the band are set upon by creatures intent on destroying them. As he fights for survival, Tracker starts to wonder, who really is this boy? Why is he missing for so long? Why do so many people want to keep the boy from being found? And perhaps, most important of all, who is telling the truth and who is lying? Drawing from African history and mythology and his own rich imagination, Marlon James has written a saga of breathtaking adventure that is also an ambitious, involving read. Defying categorization and full of unforgettable characters, Black Leopard, Red Wolf is both surprising and profound as it explores the fundamentals of truth, the limits of power, the excess of ambition, and our need to understand them all. And I think that's a very, very apt description, and I would recommend anyone who really, really likes fantasy, this is historical fantasy, but that doesn't really matter, who really, really likes fantasy, to definitely give this one a read. I will say, if you're not super into fantasy, this probably isn't the place to start. The world building is very, very intricate. I just think it can be a little much because of how intricate the world building is. It's just kind of like it's very heavy. That's all I will say. But that was amazing. Next, we have The Weight of Blood by Tiffany D. Jackson. I read this as an ebook, and this is a horror book, and I rated it 4 stars. So I have mixed feelings about the book. I thought that I would have rated this 5 stars if the setting hadn't been what it is, but I'm going to tell you about what it is first. Mad Maddie has been hiding her identity from the little town of Springville, but a freak rainstorm reveals the secret that Maddie had been viciously trying to hide. Now the small town is tearing itself apart, and Maddie is dead in the middle of it. So, it's really, really good in all but the setting. The setting is 2014 in a small town in Georgia, I believe. That's the only part that's unrealistic, because this book deals with a lot of overt racism, despite the fact that some of the characters say that it's like, not like it's microaggressions. No, hun, those were just aggressions. And I don't want to say, I grew up in the South, so I understand, but I feel like it was unbelievable how overt people were about it, instead of it being those truly like microaggression level racism that you see a lot of times in the South. And I won't say, if there is a town like this, disprove it immediately. Book is amazing. There we go. So this, I will say, this is basically Carrie, but if Carrie was African American. And the author plays very heavily into it being like Carrie in a different font. So just so you know that. But yeah, I don't know. See, the iPad here is helping some, but not a whole lot. Let me tell you, actually. Because I don't write a lot for all of them. Not all of them have super long, like, detailed reviews and everything. Next, I read Jackal by Aaron E. Adams. This is a horror. I read it as an ebook, and I rated it 3 stars. So basically, this woman is coming back to the town that she grew up in, and in this town, little black girls have been going missing for close to 35 years. They say the number in the book, but I don't remember what it is. And so when she comes back, it's for this wedding, and a little black girl that she knows goes missing. And now our main character, is uncovering this huge plot, and she's trying to figure out who is kidnapping these girls and why and what is happening. And it is a fantasy horror because there are some fantasy elements. What did I not like about this book? I really liked the characters. The characters were fine. I didn't mind the setting. What I didn't like was the fantasy element, I think, because they bring in Egyptian mythology kind of out of nowhere, and it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. And also the big bad mythical creature, whatever. It's not really explained how it showed up and why and stuff like that. So overall, it was pretty good, but if you like horror, give it a read. If you don't like horror, I'd skip this one. Kind of same with the next one. The next one is When the Reckoning Comes by LaTanya McQueen. I read this as an ebook. This is also horror, and I also rated it 3 stars. So this one is more of a novella. Jackal was a full-length 400-page-ish book. When the Reckoning Comes was about 200 pages. I could say that like it's shorter, and I realized that I just read behemoth books is the issue here. But so the basis of this is that white people in America have forgotten how America was built and what it was built on. And we are trying to make it seem better than it was. And our main character has been fooled a little bit by that, and so now she has to reckon with the spirits of the enslaved population who have died coming back and just giving their reckoning. I think it would have been better if it was longer, honestly, because the characters are very flat, because despite the fact that the main character says that she has to learn and she has to see, it does sound kind of like she did all of that before, she just wouldn't admit it to herself, so it was kind of like not much of a change, and then none of the other characters changed. And it was also really hard to tell when they were going back and forth between timelines, because she would see something and it would be very real to her, but then it wouldn't be real, and so it was very hard to tell what was actually happening in the book. And yeah, it was basically, I wanted, because it seemed to be a lot about how white people have forgotten, I wanted that to be a little more of a focus, but instead it was just on our main character, who is African American, which is fine. I just wanted a little bit more of what I thought was gonna happen, if that kind of makes sense. Last book I've read, Ring Shout by P. Clark. I don't know. I'll put the name like here or whatever. I don't want to say it wrong, which is why I'm not gonna say it. I should have looked it up. Okay, well, it won't tell me because Google sucks, but it will be down there. So this I read is an ebook. I really want the physical copy of this. I actually recommended it to my dad, and he's gonna go read it. He actually put a hold on it at our local library, so there you go. So I don't know if he'll like it, if he likes it yet, but I'm hoping. Anyway, this is a horror. I rated it 5 stars. Absolutely love this book. The characters were amazing. The setting was amazing. It was just overall really, really intriguing. And the length was really, really perfect, but I also definitely think that the author could expand this universe if they ever want to. So this book is basically 1920s in the South if the KKK weren't only white men, but were also monsters. And there was a group of African American women who were fighting them. It's really, really amazing, and it really, really dives into the depths of what hatred is and what slavery is and all of that, and like all of the deep, deep history behind slavery. I hope this video doesn't get under review for this. Oops. I was just thinking about that. It shouldn't. But if it does, bad YouTube. But yeah, it was really, really interesting. It was just really, really amazing, and I thought it was really, really good, really, really interesting, and I loved the characters, I loved the story, and I would love to read more by this author, because this author's writing just really, really spoke to me. So those were the 11 books plus one that I read in February. The one, obviously, I didn't finish. But now I'm gonna discuss this stack of books because I'm gonna try and do a new thing. Because I like doing new things, even though it's really hard for me to do them. So I am going to, drumroll, have monthly TBRs because I have close to like 200, maybe more books that I haven't read physically. And my dad was like, you can't buy more books until you get to 130. And that's gonna take me a while. So I decided that I would start doing this because I do read a lot of ebooks rather than physical books, especially books, not even books that I own. Out of the books that I read that I just told you about, only 2 of those I read. So I only owned 2 of the 12 books that I just talked about. 3 were physical, but I don't own this one. So yeah, I have a problem. So I have made a physical TBR that I'm going to try and get through, and it has 12 books. Let me count to make sure, but because I apparently am bad at counting, if you ever go to my TikTok, I have a top 100 books poster that I'm trying to read books off of, and I can't count in any of those videos, so. It is 12. So I'm just gonna go through the books that I want to read in March, which is Women's History Month, and I think also Disability Awareness Month. But yeah. So the first book I have is In Between Spaces. This is a book, it's an anthology of disabled writers, and it's edited by Rebecca Burke. Do I know what she writes? No. I don't think it'll tell me. I don't think it would. Maybe it'll tell me the back of the book. No. But regardless, this is it's a collection of fiction, nonfiction, and poetry from disabled authors. I did read a couple of these for based on for a creative writing class, so I have read a couple of them. If you see them dog-eared, that was just because I didn't have tabs, and this is my book, and I did annotate them a little bit, but so yeah, basically I just want to read all the way through this anthology. A lot of them are really, really short, and I kind of wish they were longer because there is a lot of stories, and it does have content warnings in the table of contents. But yes, I just, I want to read this, actually, finally. Next, which is the book I'm currently reading, is The Keeper of the Night by Kylie Lee Baker. This book is, I say I started reading it. I haven't quite started reading it yet because I've been trying to finish up some other books that I have and read some books for class, because I apparently decided to take a lot of reading classes this semester. But I'll read you the, this will be really interesting for all of us, for me to just read to you, but why not? Half British Reaper, half Japanese Shinigami. Ren Scarborough has been collecting souls in the London streets for centuries. Expected to obey the harsh hierarchy of the Reapers, who despise her due to her mysterious mother and even more mysterious Shinigami powers, Ren conceals her emotions and avoids her tormentors the best she can. When her failure to control her developing Shinigami abilities drives Ren out of London, she flees to Japan in search of the acceptance she's never gotten from her fellow Reapers. Accompanied by her younger brother, the only being on Earth who cares for her, Ren enters Yomi, the Japanese underworld, to serve the goddess of death, only to learn that here, too, she must prove herself worthy. Determined to earn respect, Ren accepts the impossible task: find and eliminate 3 dangerous yokai demons. With help from only her brother and a new ally who might be less than trustworthy, Ren will learn how far she'll go to claim her place at Death's side. This is a debut, and I think it is also the first in a duology. But yeah, I think it's a duology. I don't know if it's YA or if it's adult, but it looks really, really cool. It looks YA because, like, the writing, but I don't know. When I read it, obviously, I'll tell you. But that is The Keeper of the Night by Kylie Lee Baker. Also, I'm sorry if you hear road noise. People on my street don't know how cars are supposed to sound. I mean, it's true. Next, I have Vespertine by Margaret Rogerson. I think this is young adult to adult. I know Sorcery of Thorns is supposed to be young adult. I think this might be more adult though. So I'll just read the back of all of these because timing for this video, I don't know. You can always just put this on whatever speed, or you can just, whatever. The spirits of the dead do not rest. That's a name. Artemisia is training to be a Grey Sister, a nun who cleanses the bodies of the deceased so that their souls can pass on. Otherwise, they will rise as ravenous, hungry spirits. She would rather deal with the dead than the living, who whisper about her scarred hands and troubled past. When her convent is attacked by possessed soldiers, Artemisia defends it by awakening an ancient spirit bound to a saint's relic. It is a revenant, a malevolent... I love being able to speak. A malevolent being that threatens to possess her the moment she drops her guard. Wielding its extraordinary power almost consumes her, but death has come, and only a Vespertine, a priestess trained to wield a high relic, has any chance of stopping it. With all knowledge of the Vespertine's lost to time, Artemisia turns to the last remaining expert for help, the Revenant himself. As she unravels a sinister mystery of saints' secrets and dark magic, her bond with the Revenant grows. And when a hidden evil begins to surface, she discovers that facing this enemy might require her to betray everything she's been taught to believe, if the Revenant doesn't betray her first. I think it's because it has a weird, like, shiny thing on the back that made it hard for me to read, or I just can't speak. I also hate these little covers. You'll see a couple of them in this. I hate these, and they can go die. Anyway, next is Kindred by Octavia E. Butler. This I actually got for my from my time travel class, because he was giving out books, and I love him because he gave out books. Dana, a 20th century black woman, is celebrating her 26th birthday with her new husband when she is snatched from her home in California and transported to the antebellum South. Rufus, the white son of a plantation owner, is drowning, and Dana has been summoned to save him. Repeatedly drawn back through time, and with each stay growing longer and more perilous, Dana is forced to contend with the brutal legacy of slavery and white supremacy, not knowing if her life will end long before it has a chance to begin. Time travel, and I also really like books that talk about the terrible things that white people have done. So that is Kindred. Speaking of terrible things that white people have done, next is Babel, an Arcane History by R.F. Kuang. You will notice that a lot of the books that I've picked are books that I've heard will shatter my soul to pieces. What can I say? maybe I like it that way. You know, I don't know. I will read the back. This is adult. I know this one is adult. I think this one is also adult. But this one is definitely adult. And I think it's a fantasy. I think it's a fantasy. 1828. Robin Swift, orphaned by cholera in Canton, is brought to London by the mysterious Professor Lovell. There, Robin trains for years in Latin, Ancient Greek, and Chinese, all in preparation for the day he'll enroll in Oxford University's prestigious Royal Institute of Translation, also known as Babel. Babel is the world's center for translation and, more importantly, magic. Silverworking, the art of manifesting the meaning lost in translation using enchanted silver bars, has made the British unparalleled in power as the arcane craft serves the Empire's quest for colonization. For Robin, Oxford is a utopia dedicated to the pursuit of knowledge. But knowledge obeys power, and as a Chinese boy raised in Britain, he realizes serving Babel means betraying his motherland. As his studies progress, Robin finds himself caught between Babel and the shadowy Hermes Society, an organization dedicated to stopping imperial expansion. When Britain pursues an unjust war with China over silver and opium, Robin must decide, can powerful institutions be changed from within, or does revolution always require violence? I have heard this is really, really good. I love a good fantasy. I think these chapters might be really long. Yeah, because that's chapter 19. This is the back end of the book. It's okay. It's okay. I'm ready to have my heart broken. Next is What Big Teeth by Rose Sasbo, which, you know, I think is queer. I love queer stories. If it's not queer and I'm wrong, I'm sorry. Eleanor Zarin has been estranged from her wild, bloodthirsty family for years. When she flees boarding school after a horrifying incident, she goes to the only place she thinks is safe, the home she left behind. But when she gets there, she struggles to fit in with her monstrous relatives who prowl the woods around the family estate and read fortunes in the guts of birds. Eleanor finds herself desperately trying to hold the family together, all while attempting to make sense of a re-emerging power that seems increasingly linked to the reason she was sent away in the first place. In order to save them all, Eleanor must learn to embrace her family of monsters and tame the darkness inside her. I think this is werewolves. I think they're werewolves. But if they're not werewolves, they might be werewolf-like, because that doesn't look like vampire teeth. But, yeah. Also, I should do, like, a flop, like, test for all of these. You know? Just a flop test. Anyway. Next, you all are gonna hate me for this. Caraval by Stephanie Garber. No, I haven't read it yet. Also, it has this stupid freaking... I've had it for a really long time. I think I had it since this copy was published, maybe, which was like 2017. And I haven't read it. I've heard it's really, really good. I have, like I've said, I've had so many books, but I'm finally gonna read it this month. Also, there is no, back of the book. Oh, it's right here. That's stupid. Scarlet Dragna has never left the tiny island where she and her sister Tella live with their powerful and cruel father. Now Scarlet's father has arranged a marriage for her, and Scarlet thinks her dreams of seeing Caraval, the faraway once-a-year performance where the audience participates in the show, are over. But this year, Scarlet's long dream of invitation finally arrives. Long dreamt of invitation finally arrives. With the help of a mysterious sailor, Tella whisks Scarlet away to the show. Only as soon as they arrive, Tella is kidnapped by Caraval's mastermind organizer, Legend. His name is Legend? Is that why the next one is called Legendary? Listen, I guess I'll just have to read it to find out. It turns out that this season's Caraval revolves around Tella, and whoever finds her first is the winner. Scarlet has been told that everything that happens during Caraval is only an elaborate performance, but she nevertheless becomes enmeshed in a game of love, heartbreak, and magic with the other players in the game. And whether Caraval is real or not, she must find Tella before the 5 nights of the game are over. A dangerous domino effect of consequences is set off, and her sister disappears forever. So, I will read it and we'll see what I think. I think this is YA. Also, it says, remember, it's only a game. It's definitely not only a game. Next, we have Juniper and Thorn by Ava Reed. This is an adult fantasy. I have read The Wolf and the Woodsman, which is also an adult fantasy by the same author, and I didn't really like it, but I've heard that this one is much darker and talks more about like family and grief, so I think I'll like it more. A gruesome curse, a city in upheaval, a monster with unquenchable appetites. These people's names are real interesting. Marlin Chen and her 2 sisters lived with their wizard father in a city shifting from magic to industry. As Opla's last true witches, she and her sisters are little more than a tourist attraction as they treat their clients with archaic remedies. English is hard, guys. And beguile them with nostalgic charm. Marlin Chen spends her days finding secrets in exchange for rubles and trying to placate her tyrannical, xenophobic father, who keeps his daughters sequestered from the outside world. But at night, Marlin Chen and her sisters sneak out to enjoy the city's amenities and revel in its thrills, particularly the recently established ballet theater, where Marlin Chen meets a dancer who quickly captures her heart. As Marlin Chen's late-night trysts go more fervent and frequent, so does the threat of her father's rage and magic. And while Obla flourishes with culture and bustles with enterprise, a monster lurks in its midst, born of intolerance and resentment, and suffused with old world power. Caught between history and progress, blood and desire, Marlin Chen must draw her own magic to keep her city safe and find her peace within it. That sounds heartbreaking. Anyway, next is another heartbreaking book. The Secret History by Donna Tartt, which I thought was a more recent book, but turns out it was published in like the 90s. Don't come at me for not knowing that. Because I saw it was like getting really, really popular on TikTok, and so I thought that it was a more recent book, but it's not. It's an older book. Anyway, reading the back. Under the influence of a charismatic classics professor, a group of clever, eccentric misfits at a New England college discover a way of thought and life a world away from their banal contemporaries. But their search for the transcendent leads them down a dangerous path beyond human constructs of morality. Also, look at this flop. Look at this flop. Yes, I got this because I knew it would break my heart, and I like sad books. Next, we have Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor. I haven't actually read any books by her, and I think this also got a little wet because it is a little... I don't know when that happened. It's possible when I bought it, the box got wet, because I think that happened a couple times with like orders that I've gotten of books, is that they've got wet and the book has gotten wet. But I'm typically not like super like upset with stuff like that. Typically I just like let it go and keep the book, because what's a book with a little, it's okay. Anyway, Laszlo Strange, war orphan and junior librarian, has been obsessed with the mythic lost city of Weep for as long as he can remember, but it would take someone bolder than he to cross half the world in search of it. Then a stunning opportunity presents itself in a person of a hero called the Godslayer and a band of legendary warriors, and he has to seize his chance or lose his dream forever. What happened to Weep 200 years ago is cut off from the rest of the world. In Weep 200 years ago to cut it off from the rest of the world. What exactly did the Godslayer slay that went by the name of God? The answers await in Weep, but so do more mysteries, including the blue-skinned goddess who appears in Laszlo's dreams. How did he dream of her before he knew she existed? In this sweeping and breathtaking novel by National Book Award finalist Laini Taylor, the shadow of the past is as real as the ghosts who haunt the citadel of murdered gods. Fall into a mythical world of dread and wonder, moths and nightmares, love and carnage. I think this is the first book in a duology, and I think the next one is the Muse of Nightmares. But yeah, this is just a book that I've had on my shelf for a really, really long time, and I decided that I finally wanted to read it. I might have had this on my shelf the same amount of time as Caraval, but you know. Next, we have two more. Next is Daughter of Sparta by Claire M. Andrews. This I know it's a Greek myth retelling, so I'll just 17-year-old Daphne has spent her entire life honing her body and mind into that of a warrior, hoping to be accepted by the unyielding people of ancient Sparta. But an unexpected encounter with the goddess Artemis, who holds Daphne's brother's fate in her hands, upends the life she's worked so hard to build. 9 mysterious items have been stolen from Mount Olympus, and if Daphne cannot find them, the gods' waning powers will fade away, the mortal world will descend into chaos, and her brother's life will be forfeit. Guided by Artemis's twin, the handsome and entirely too self-assured god Apollo, Daphne's journey will take her from the labyrinth of the Minotaur to the riddled spinning Sphinx of Thebes. Team her up with mythological legends such as Theseus and Hippolyta of the Amazons, and pit her against the gods themselves. I love a Greek retelling. And this is the last one, which, yeah, you'll see. Into the Drowning Deep by Mira Grant, which I've only kind of heard of. I haven't heard of Daughters of Sparta, by the way. I just saw it and I love Greek retelling. So, but this just sounded way too interesting for me to pass up. So we'll see. 7 years ago, the Artagatis set off on a voyage to the Mariana Trench to film a mockumentary bringing to life ancient sea creatures of legend. It was lost at sea with all hands. Some have called it a hoax, others have called it a tragedy. Now a new crew has been assembled, but this time they're not out to entertain. Some seek to validate their life's work. Some seek the greatest hunt of all. Some seek the truth. But for the ambitious young scientist, Victoria Stewart, this is a voyage to uncover the fate of the sister she lost. Whatever the truth may be, it will only be found below the waves. So I think it's mermaids, but horror. Anyway, those are the 12 books that are on my March TBR, and the 11 books plus one that I read in February. I'll see you next time. If I don't throw a book at you, I'll see you next time. Bye.